All right, so I'm back, sort of. My voice is fixed, anyway. And basically, I've had to take sort of an enforced break on writing and working on my skirmish game, The Cascade, due to work and illness, stuff like that. Fun things. So in the very recent past here, I actually picked up a couple of new war games that I had not had before. My cat is moving the lights around in the background. Rowan, Witchbane, everybody. And so I just thought today I would just chat about a couple of these research materials that I picked up to help me in sort of exploring more of these skirmish games that are out there. It's actually given me an excuse to actually read more of my game books and watch a little less YouTube, theoretically. Yeah, so I got a couple of jeez. I'll do that again. Smoother, more better. So I picked up a couple of new games here I'm going to chat about. And we'll just have some fun talking about new games that you've probably all read and I'm just getting into now. And they're going to help me a little bit in writing The Cascade. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to another episode of Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes we explore other games. We do research, which we can write off on our taxes for business purposes. And we thank our patrons for supporting the purchasing of these research items that go onto my bookshelf, and I get to enjoy them. Thank you guys very much. It's much appreciated. Oh, and I guess I should mention that things are deteriorating in the alchemy lab. Yesterday, in my apartment, they had to come in and replace the entire breaker box. They were updating every apartment in the complex's breaker boxes. Anyway, after that was all said and done, everything came back up and running except this one light in the middle of my thing back here. So now I got to get a new light. Okay, so yeah, basically, when you're working on a project, right? Lots of projects will require some research, or some inspiration type stuff or whatever. You want to get some inspiration for things. You look at what other people have done in the same realm. And, sometimes you don't want to look too close because you want to like rip somebody off or whatever, right? Even though there's an interesting thing here, at least in the US, with copyright, and that is that game mechanics cannot be copyrighted. Now, all the flavor and how you dress something up, that's copyrightable. But the actual mechanics of games cannot be copyrighted. Like, nobody can own the process of rolling a d20 to determine an outcome. But that's just a thing that's just an interesting thing that's out there. Anyway, I purchased a couple of rule books in the last couple weeks. I actually have a third one on order. It should be in the mail this week sometime that I'm looking forward to checking out. So how this started is that I'm working on the section in the Cascade that is all about how to sort of generate random scenarios, and I'm working on the Odyssey rule section, which is the campaign rule section, the narrative campaign part of the game. So I haven't personally played games that have sort of the mechanics that I'm trying to write up or thinking about. Obviously played plenty of games. I mean, most of the skirmish games I play do have a narrative campaign section, and that's all fine. There's just some things inherent to the Cascade, the setting with all these different spheres that you can go to and different environments and all these kind of things I wanted to sort of, I just had this vague notion of what I wanted the game to feel like, which is like, oh, if I want to go do this thing, how do I mechanically achieve that? If I want to go on this side quest, how do I do that? Or how do I do this, I want to hunt down this particular monster, and because it might have some resources that I can collect from it, and I want to go do that now. I'm talking in very big generalistic terms here. So I was kind of looking for some games that had some world building mechanics or some progression scenario type stuff. Anyway, again, like I said, these are just vague terms because I'm not super I'm not a game designer, and I've never really done this before. Anyway, the first book that I came across that I looked up, now I have the original version of this game. I have the original box set still in its packing box. I've literally never opened it. I have Warcry first edition, and I found out through some random Google searching that Warcry second edition actually does have this expanded campaign system. And so, wrong side, every time. I ordered Warcry, the core rulebook. This is the core rulebook that would come in the box set. I believe you can also buy it separately, and I did purchase this separately on eBay, and I specifically bought this. I've never actually played a game of Warcry. Not that I didn't want to open it, I just haven't got around to it. And you know what I'm talking about, and you're just like me, so, you know, have a donut. Relax. Let me put on my reader glasses here and see. There's a specific section that I bought this game book for. The narrative play section is what I wanted to check out, because they had this sort of, they expanded the way that their narrative campaigns work. And so they have a bunch of rules in here for, you know, the aftermath thing, which is kind of like the downtime thing I was talking about a couple videos ago, what you do in between battles. But they also have this whole section for exploring, and I'll say that in our famous air quotes, exploring, and there's a reason that I'm putting it that way. And I'm not, it's not derogatory towards the game. It's just it's interesting what the exploring, or how the exploring works. If you can tell today, there's no script in front of me. I'm winging it because I'm so good at it. Yeah, so they have this whole thing, you know, with like this little map here where it's all on paper. All this exploration of this location in the game is all done on paper. It's not like physically what you're doing with your miniatures and stuff. Your miniatures fight the battles and the scenarios, but then you do the exploration and stuff in the aftermath sequence in between the battles. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because I was very interested in this idea of exploring new areas as a progression thing, because it's kind of similar to my idea of going to these different spheres, right, in the Cascade. I can't look at the book and you guys at the same time with the reader glasses on. This is just a nightmare. So, and they have all this quest system in here, which is great. If you want to go look for an item, you can quest for it. And again, that's kind of done on paper, and then it might result in a battle, but you do basically dice rolls and stuff in between scenarios that tell you if you're going to progress in the quest or whatever. Again, I haven't played this, but I've read through it pretty thoroughly, and it's pretty interesting. And they have like a battle plan generator, which is also something I'm working on, because I want to work on, in the Cascade, a method to procedurally randomly generate scenarios. What do you want to play scenarios? Whether you're playing, you know, with your friend, 1v1 or PvP, or possibly there might be some quests that you might play solo, which is an interesting thing to try to handle with the mechanics of my game, because my game is based on the domino tiles and it's not dice rolls, and that makes it a little more difficult to work out solo rules, but they're coming along. I have some ideas. They have these victory condition sort of blurbs, a set of conditions, or, you know, they might change the way the battle works, things like that. So that's pretty cool. Oh, here's a much bigger picture of the exploration map. So like you can set up your camp and you can travel in between. In the aftermath sequence, you can try to travel and set up camps in new areas, and then certain things happen when you're in the camp, and while you stay in the camp, after every scenario or battle, you are gonna roll some dice. And like I said, it's all done basically on paper in between the battles, and you get bonuses and penalties, and you can find things or whatever. Again, I just found it interesting that it's all sort of paper-based and just a simple die rolls and stuff. Whereas I was thinking maybe it was more like oh, this is how to generate a new batch of terrain, and here's some terrain rules, stuff like that. Because that's what I'm having to come up with, or what I would like to come up with. Yeah, so Warcry core rules for 2nd edition. I found it very inspirational and pretty cool and helpful. Now, the second game that I picked up, and a lot of you actually recommended this game or asked if I had played this game, and I've heard of it for years, but I've never checked it out. And that is Five Parsecs From Home. Right? Yeah, Five Parsecs From Home. And I mentioned I had another book coming in the mail, and that is the companion or the sister game or brother game to this, which is 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, which is the fantasy version. This is a sci-fi setting, kind of like Stargrave versus Frostgrave, right? So, first off, I really like this book as a book. It's really well designed. It's published by Modifius, which is a nice high-end boutique game publisher. They published the special edition, a hardback of Rangers of Shadowdeep, of which I've got a copy of that. And they've done they did a special edition of Crown and Skull from Runehammer. They do really, really nice work. This book has a lot of tables, which I really enjoy, for all the random procedurally generated stuff. It's really nicely graphically designed, which I just enjoy. That's like just as a subset or a sub something of my enjoyment of game books and stuff is the actual, just the design, product design. They've done a really nice job. And this book is a 6x9. The paper is 6x9. The cover is a little bit larger, but it's a 6" by 9" format. And I just love how it feels in the hand. It's not overly large, like 8.5 by 11, but yet it's very clear. All the information, that the text is not too small. The tables are laid out really well. The headings and stuff, all the little graphic design elements, like the section headers that run through every page, the tables, etc. All super nice and makes it easy to read. I enjoy studying that part of it as well. And I do like this 6x9 format. So, anyway, this game, I did not understand what this game was. I didn't know anything about it. So I thought that this game was just like Stargrave. I thought it was PvP, a sci-fi game, a sci-fi skirmish game. That's what I thought it was. Which it is. But it is actually, it says it right on the cover. It's a solo adventure. Oh, it's not this is sort of verbiage. It's solo adventure wargaming. You can play it co-op if you want. It's pretty simple. There's not like special rules. You just sort of split up your warband, and one person can control like 3 of the figures on the table, and another person can control the other 3, etc. But it is set up to be completely solo played. Now, what I found interesting in this is that it is enormous. And it basically is like a procedurally generated, or a way to procedurally generate for one's self, basically a story, like an adventure story, where you follow your characters through these different things. The actual skirmish battle, like tabletop battles that you play, while that is like a big chunk of the game experience, I'd say it's like 50% of the game experience. It's not 100% of the game experience like it would be in Rangers of Shadowdeep or Frostgrave or whatever. Which also, yes, you create narratives and campaign. You create a narrative story as you play those games. You do this here too, but this, like 50% of this game is, again, using dice and paper to create all these, or to find out like what is happening. It's all this. It basically creates a lot of story that lead up to the battle that you fight, and then after that, the ramifications of that influence what happens next. And it's a whole nother batch of dice rolling and stuff on paper, where you find out if you've got rivals, if you have a patron, if you're successful in doing the job. There are whole rules in here for, you have basically a spaceship. That's your like base camp. And you actually travel with your spaceship from one planet or world to another planet or world, and then you get to determine randomly through the tables that you roll on, you determine what type of planet it is. So all of the results on these random tables, they're all tied into game mechanics. So if you're traveling with your crew on your spaceship from one world to another, you're just doing that on paper. And you're just rolling some dice on tables. But you're going to find out, like, something might happen during the trip. Your ship might get hit by an asteroid. And it has other ramifications, like if your ship gets hit by an asteroid, if it gets hit bad enough, then one of your crew members might get wounded because, it's destroyed something inside the ship, and your guys have panicked and tried to repair the ship. Now you have to repair the ship. And then when you arrive at the new world, you got to find out, well, what is this new world all about? What kind of things does it have on it? And each one of those has some kind of, penalty or bonus or not activity, but some kind of attribute that affects your crew, like in game terms. So you might get a bonus for rolling on, rumors to find quests, or you might get a bonus in your next combat because you found some items, or I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I really haven't seen another game like this, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book, and I'm really enjoying reading the book. Now, will I actually play one of these games? I don't actually know. It's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that you do that create this narrative, this sort of procedurally generated narrative. And I think it's pretty awesome. But reading through this book, I was like, it just started to occur to me, and, this is heresy to say, I'm sure, but this is the Alchemy Lab, so, heretics are welcome. Donuts are in the back. Yeah, I was just, in reading through all these random tables, the procedurally generated stuff, and all the detail, I kept thinking, like, wow, this might be super actually fun to have as an app. Because the one thing it doesn't do for you, let's say somebody is playing this game and they're not inherently like a writer at heart, right? They're into other things. So they're procedurally given all these different elements that create this story, but there's no, if you want to actually like have it as a story, you'd have to sit down and write your story out. You'd have to keep your journal or your log as you play this game, and then you would, write everything out, and it would be up to you how much detail you put in that, and then you'd have, this story. But if you had an app that generated this stuff, that, would do all the dice rolls for you, sure, you could randomly do the dice rolls, but it could generate flavor text. So it would actually, maybe write this story for you as you go. Again, I'm not saying it should be done or anything like that. I thought it was it's just an interesting idea. You can just randomly generate an entire story, and then you have to play the battles, of course, because the battles will, the results of the battles, whether you win or lose, or people get wounded, or they die, or you recruit new people, or whatever, everything, all the plot points turn on those battles, of course, right? Because it changes the direction of how you're flowing through the story. Each battle is in itself part of the randomly procedurally generated story. So I find it very interesting, and there are definitely some tips and tricks that I'm finding in here that are going to help me with some of the things that I need to do for generating scenarios and stuff in the Cascade, for when you want to go on a certain quest, or you find an item, or you find a relic, and you're like, oh, this is a relic. This is actually part of this powerful item. So now that you have a relic, and if you find a map and you compare the two together, now you've got a quest map, and then now you can go do a series of scenarios that, if you're successful, can result in you finding and securing that particular item, that powerful item that you want out of that random table list of powerful items that might be have a very low chance of you drawing randomly throughout the game, right? Now I'm just rambling about random procedurally generated rambles. It's all happening in here. This is the procedurally random generator, the thought cage. So yeah, this has just been one, long ramble episode about doing research on things by buying new games and checking them out. And yeah, again, like I said, this is sci-fi based. Everything here is, classic sci-fi stuff. And I'm looking forward to looking at the fantasy version of that, the 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. I can't wait to get that. I found that half price on eBay. I also got this book half price, just a little over half price. I guess it was about 40% off on Amazon, which is why I was able to purchase it, because otherwise it's typically pretty expensive. But, you know, find a deal. I forgot what Runehammer always says, you know. Be cool, never steal. You always find a deal. That's Runehammer's thing, man. Go do some research, and I'll see ya.